Welcome. Thank you for coming out tonight to the Wayland Library. Tonight we are excited to have Sabine von Mering here to talk about the private jet climate threat at Hanscom Air Force Base. Sabine is a member of the 350 Mass Climate Movement, a professor at Brandeis, a 20-year Wayland resident, and an elected member of the Wayland Democratic Town Committee. She's also a 2023 Public Voices Fellow with the OpEd Project and with Yale University's Climate Change Communication Program. Her translation of Beginning to End the Climate Crisis, A History of Our Future was published with Brandeis University Press in March of 2023. Thank you so much for doing this tonight. Couple housekeeping notes. We're recording this program for broadcast on Waycam as well as for our YouTube page, so you'll be able to rewatch and share. And if you are joining us via Zoom, put your questions in the chat and at any point, and then I will raise my hand and read them aloud when we get to the Q&A. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Courtney, and whoever is in the back doing the tech. I'm happy to be here. I love my public library. So the topic, the private jet climate threat at Hanscom. And I'm going to say this again later, but just to be clear, this is about the Hanscom Airfield. It has nothing to do with the Air Force Base. Yes, so the Air Force Base is next to it and happens to have the same name, but it's actually a non-flying base. So this is about the civil Massport-owned airfield. And I'm indeed with 350 Mass Metro West and also with the Stop Private Jet Expansion Campaign and with Energize Wayland here in Wayland. I always start with, if you don't know what's going on with the climate crisis, read Naomi Oreskes' book, Merchants of Doubt, or watch the film. I believe it's available here, even at the library. It gives you a sense of why we haven't made more progress. And this is the book that you mentioned that I translated, and we actually launched it here as well back last year. And this is our 350 Mass. This is Mass Energize, and Energize Wayland is sort of our home base for Mass Energize, and there's a lot happening. So check out the Energize Wayland website. Why am I here? The problem we're facing is getting worse year by year, and this is sort of the summary of the problem, and at the same time, a very clear visualization of what we're facing, right? We are seeing an increase in average global surface air temperature, and 2023 was not only the hottest year in this already very hot decade, but scientists found that it was likely the hottest in 100,000 years. And so Massachusetts, sometimes people say, oh, well, this is a problem for regions in the global south. But no, that is not true. We are already feeling the effects of the climate crisis here in Massachusetts. And so we're investing a lot of energy in figuring out what to do, in researching it, and deploying solutions. So how could and will the climate change in Massachusetts? When you look at this, which is from the Massachusetts Climate Change Assessment of 2022, we're basically going to be looking at temperatures of Georgia by 2090 in Massachusetts. Right? This is Massachusetts temperatures changing over the next few decades, and that means we will have hot days that feel like 99 Fahrenheit in 2070, and it's going to just get worse. So by 2013, if you compare, we had 4 days a year over 90. By 2050, scientists expect 25 days a year over 90. By 2090, it's going to be 55 days over 90. And when you look at the past 10 years, we've already seen, when you look at this slide, the average was 4 a year. Over the last 10 years, the average was 15.7 days over 90 in Boston. So we're already way on our way of reaching those averages. And heat is the number one killer when it comes to extreme weather events. So this is a major issue, especially for those of us who are older. The oceans have been doing most of the work. The oceans have been absorbing most of that extra heat, and we saw this especially in 2023. Also here in front of our coast, the ocean water was dramatically warmer than in the past, and that, of course, has an impact on all the life in the oceans, and in turn on the food that we eat, because many people around the world require food from the ocean. So, and the ocean's ability to uptake heat is not unlimited. This is also from that same website of the Massachusetts Climate Assessment, and they basically show us the likelihood of extremes happening and how much warning times we have. And so you can see there's a very high likelihood of extreme temperatures, coastal flooding, coastal erosion, flooding from precipitation, invasive species, other severe weather, and wildfires. And even though we have very low tsunami likelihood, there's high likelihood of severe winter storms, tornadoes, and changes in groundwater. And some of these, as you can see, have a warning time of 1 to 5 days, which is really a problem when you have millions of people to protect, right? So that comes with an increase in cost, of course. So they already say that local spending in Massachusetts could grow as much as 15% for the decade of 2050 to 2059, and then 30% for 2090 to 2099. So this is a very expensive problem to not address. And in terms of precipitation, I was just thinking about this slide because as we witness this winter, we always have these extreme rains that are where a lot of water is coming down very fast, right? And we continue to see this, and they say we will have more of that, more extreme, but often fewer but more intense weather events, which makes the impact, of course, more dangerous and more difficult to deal with. This is also from that climate assessment, and you can see the change in precipitation over time. By 2070, there's areas that are going to be a lot drier, and there's areas that are going to be a lot wetter. And those are the problem areas because we need food, and food needs a stable weather environment, and that's what we're losing. And so we're not going to have a problem with food, basically. That's really the biggest challenge. So what are we doing about this? Well, apparently what we're doing is expanding private jets at Hanscom Airfield. So why are we doing this? Well, and as I said before, not to be confused with the Air Force Base, Hanscom Air Force Base, which is next to the Massport-owned civil airport, is a non-flying Air Force Base that is focused on cyberspace security and R&D. So it is not, a military airport in that sense. So this private jet development expands the infrastructure for private jets by 2.3 times. It is the single largest development in Hanscom's history, and the largest known project for generating new greenhouse gases in Massachusetts at this time. It's relieving jet capacity constraints, the luxury jet capacity constraints. That is basically what it's solving. It's solving a parking problem for billionaires. And if you think about it, when you want fewer people to emit carbon. For example, when you don't want people to drive to the city, what you do is you reduce parking space so that people are incentivized not to come in by car. Zurich is a perfect example for that. Wonderful city, beautiful to walk in. They made it very difficult to park in the city, and they provided lots of public transit, and that solved the problem. We're doing apparently the opposite. We're providing lots of parking space for luxury jets so that they can grow the private jet industry, which is really nonsensical at a time of climate disruption. It is also nonsensical because it literally flies in the face of the policies that we have agreed to with our roadmap bill. We have agreed to reach net zero by 2050, and that means that across the state and across the sectors, we need to reach that goal, right? We need to decarbonize across the sectors. And our towns are committed to doing that. So in the towns that directly abut the airport, there are climate plans for decarbonizing the towns. And the plans have 2050 as a goal for net zero, right? That makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense also because solar energy is widely available for another 3 billion years, I think, at least. So long enough, right? And plentiful, and it is cheaper and cheaper by the minute, pretty much. And so we're all using solar now instead of fossil fuels. I have solar panels on my roof. I'm sure some of you do. We're building solar on land that can't be used for growing food. We're putting solar on community. We're making a community solar commitment. That is how we deal with the climate crisis. What is the private jet industry saying? No, they're doing the opposite. So what Neil did to provided me with these slides, so you're looking at the same slide on the bottom here for the town plans. And at that scale, you're looking at the Hanscom emissions on top. And so instead of getting to net zero by 2050, we're flying off with increasing 10%, 5%, at least 2%, and either of these plans would completely destroy our carbon targets, reduction targets. Another way of looking at this. So the increase is dramatic, and it is clearly anticipated. What's important also is to remember that we have already installed a lot of solar in Massachusetts, 4 gigawatts. 50% of that is actually negated by the existing emissions of private jets. So the logical thing to do would be to say, no more private jets, right? Because it means that a handful of rich people can destroy everything we all are doing to try to protect the planet. And if the emissions grow as planned with this new project, then all our commitments are basically negated by this expansion. So it is a project that serves only a very small number of people who are actually not in need of these hangar spaces because it is not a business usage. It's primarily a private usage for resort destinations, as our friend Chuck Collins found out in the Wall Street Journal. And so this is an outrage. I call it a climate crime. And that is especially dire if you compare the emissions of a private jet with the emissions of a family in India. Families in the global south, of course, being especially impacted already now by rising temperatures. So we don't need this. We certainly don't need this. And what we really need to understand is that this is a project that benefits a few people, and it's subsidized by all of us. Because they don't pay taxes, sales taxes on their private jets, unlike you or me, with our cars. They don't pay property tax on the private jet facilities. They even get write-offs, thanks to Mr. DT. And, you know, there's no state and local jet fuel tax because of some weird law. So it's all subsidized by all of us, this expansion of a pet peeve for a few billionaires. And now we're in a process, so the way this works is when you want to do something like this in Massachusetts, there's what's called a MEPA process, which means the proponents last year had to submit a proposal, and then the energy secretary created an open comment period, and 350 people commented, and then the comments helped the energy secretary create basically a homework list for the developers, and the developers submitted their response last week. And now we all have the chance to comment again on this project. So we have until May 10th to, oops, I forgot to start my stopwatch, so I have to keep it in mind. So we have until May 10th to tell them what we think about this proposal. And what we're seeing in the developer's response to the secretary's questions is, for example, this is a net zero project, which sounds really nice, right? And you were like, huh, maybe they came to their senses. And then you look closely and you realize they are claiming that they're offsetting 700 tons of building emissions, but they're actually ignoring the hundreds of thousands of tons of aircraft emissions, which are going to dramatically increase, of course, when you provide so much extra parking space. So they're playing with us and pretending that we are stupid and we can't count. That's the first claim. The second claim is this project will not generate any new flights. So they say that, and they use this term ferry flights, saying that, you know, when a person wants to use their private jet and there's no parking space at Hanscom, then that private jet has to be parked somewhere else, and then it has to fly over to pick them up and then take them somewhere, and then when they come back, it has to do an extra flight. So these extra flights are called ferry flights, right? And so they say, if we give them all this extra parking space, then they have to do those, they don't have to have those extra flights anymore. But if you think about it, that actually suggests that they can fly even more. And there's no reason to suggest that the flight that originates in Hanscom isn't going to ferry someone or someplace else, right? It is completely nonsensical to think that this would actually reduce flights, because when you build it, they will come, there will be more flights. So this idea that there will not be extra flights is simply wrong. And then they also say that this is greenhouse gas reduction, right? Which is simply wrong. It is increasing greenhouse gases because they're also adding 20,000 gallons of jet fuel that is going to be parked underground in 4 big containers. And they already say that big trucks will develop 10,000 gallons a day. I think 2 trucks a day bring 10,000
Each
gallons.
truck is 10,000.
Each truck is 10,000 gallons. So there's going to be 2 trucks a day delivering 10,000 gallons of fuel. And then you start scratching your head thinking, huh, if each day a truck is going to come in and deliver 10,000 gallons of fuel, that only makes sense if those 10,000 gallons are also depleted every day, because otherwise, where are they going to put them, right? So obviously the intention is for those 10,000, 20,000 gallons of fuel to be used on a daily basis, which will dramatically increase emissions. So then there's this dream of clean airplanes. They will fly with low carbon fuel. But the fact of the matter is we don't actually have such airplanes that can fly as far as private jet owners want to fly. And they are not in the near future available. The idea that there's sustainable aviation fuels or SAFs is likewise a, you know, it changes, it pretends to be an alternative because they actually emit the same or more CO2 when burned, because it needs to get burned in order to fly the plane. And there's a big question mark over how you actually come up with the biofuel. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from, you know, are you growing the fuels, and does that mean you're not growing food? So everything we know tells us that that is not really a benefit to our climate. And anyway, there is also no way that the airport could require private jet owners to use clean fuels. Even if there were clean fuels, they don't have that power. And so once the airport is expanded, once the jet hangars are expanded, people who use them can fly with whatever fuel they want. So the reason why this is such an important campaign to stop this particular expansion is that it's really the test case, because the expansion of private jets is happening across the world. The business travelers, or I should say the billionaire travelers, realized during the pandemic that if they fly private, they don't have to deal with the hoi polloi like you and me, and they don't have to go through the security at the big airports, and they don't have to sit on the airplanes with us, and they can go with their friends whenever they want to, and so on. And so the number of users and owners of private jets has shot up over the last few years, and that, of course, has led to demands for more parking lots for private jets. And so we need to nip this in the bud. And this largest project in the country is the right place to start saying, no, we need to stop it right here, because otherwise we will have the same problem elsewhere. And we have to show that at this time of climate crisis is simply not the right move. And so that's something that we need to keep articulating. And so then the question becomes, okay, how can we stop this? Unfortunately, even though this is a statewide issue, our towns have no regulatory authority over it. The legislature has no regulatory authority. Massport has no power once the facilities are built. And limiting infrastructure is really the only control our state has. And Massport reports to the governor. And so we know if it does get built, it will increase private jet travel. And we need our governor who has said that she really cares about the climate crisis, she needs to put her decisions where her mouth is, and she needs to stop this project. So what can you do? You can all join us. We have a website, spje.org, stopprivatejetexpansion.org. There is an online petition there to Governor Healy. We already have over 13,000 signatures, and we want more. If you are part of an organization, get them to join us. We already have dozens of organizations across the state that are part of our coalition. Wayland, I'm proud to say, has already approved a resolution opposing this expansion. Other towns, if you're living in a different town, please follow suit. We have municipal resolution campaign. You can contact us and we will help you get your town or city council to approve it. And finally, now we're in the moment where we are trying to get people to, we're educating people about this because we want everyone to submit comments. So this DEIR, the draft environmental impact report that the developers are demanded by state law to submit, has been submitted last Friday, March 22nd. And we have until May 10 to submit comments. And so everyone should email info@stopprivatejetexpansion.org, because we have a toolkit that can help you figure out what you want to say. Last year, we got 350 comments, and we can do better this year. So the idea is that we'll double that, because a lot more people know about this. I remember last year when I found out about it in March from Bill McKibben, who came and told us, and I was flabbergasted. I was like, what? This can't be happening at this moment. And so I hope many people feel the same way, because we really, really need to stop this. And we know that a lot of eyes are on this process. We have certainly alerted the governor already several times. We handed the first 10,000 petitions to her in October, I think, September, October. We have many legislators on our side. Senator Barrett gave a fiery speech at the public presentation of the developers, really emphasizing that his constituents do not benefit from this at all, except for the 5 or 6 or whoever, how many billionaires there are. And so everyone pays attention. Ed Markey certainly pays attention, and they need to see that we are all paying attention. So even though they tell us they reduced the number of hangars they wanted to build from 27 to 17, the fact of the matter is they're actually building a larger hangar space now, 522,000 square feet, gigantic, more than double all the infrastructure at Hanscom at present. It's the biggest private jet expansion in the country. And as I said, they have not at all made any comments about the emissions from the private jets. They only talk about nice green buildings, as if that mattered. And they are canceling all the work that we have been very busy doing to try to address the climate crisis. So there's going to be tons of extra jet fuel being burned, and they will not burn clean fuel as they pretend they will. And so the greenhouse gases from this could top 130,000 metric tons per year just from the jet fuel that is being brought to the place. And they have really no convincing evidence that they are reducing flights with this project. All right, so that's my information for you. This is the book that we mentioned earlier. And I'm ready to take questions from in the room first, maybe, and then we'll go online. What else can I tell you?
We have one question online.
Yeah.
Someone says, thank you for your passion and expertise. When I first heard about this campaign from you, I contacted my town council about it. I eventually heard back and was told that 1, they knew nothing about it, despite my having included information, and 2, it was irrelevant to my town. How can I get some traction?
Okay, I hope to have shown in my presentation that this is not a local issue, right? Climate is never a local issue. Climate is, of course, a global issue, but the United States is one of the top per capita emitters of CO2 and greenhouse gases in general. And so that is why here in Massachusetts, any town that cares about what we have tried to do about the climate and what we continue to try to do, and that cares about how we spend our money, right? We have invested taxpayer dollars in addressing this problem, and these few rich people are just going to destroy everything we're doing. So it's really critical that we understand that this flies in the face of everything we've done and everything we're doing. And of course, it impacts people across the state. If you look at I highly recommend going to the Massachusetts Climate Assessment website and looking at the impacts of the climate crisis across the state, right? We're all impacted, no matter where we live, by the deteriorating situation in the atmosphere. And so, yes, this is, of course, if you look at noise and such things, then it is a local issue. But if you're looking at it through the lens of the climate crisis, then it is absolutely a statewide issue, and it is an issue that, you know, we can together in Massachusetts we can do something about. So I don't know, is that enough of an answer? So. Otherwise, they should ask
contact
more.
you. Yes.
Yeah, and feel free to get in touch.
Yeah.
We'll certainly be happy to also come to the town. I don't know which town it is, but you know, I or anyone from the campaign would be happy to come and provide more details.
Can you talk a little bit about what's a private jet? Like, is there a difference between a charter and, you know, those little Cessnas? Like, what's a...
Yeah, so there's a lot of differences. Yeah. So when we're talking about a jet, we're talking about a jet engine with turbines and real jet fuel. The little turboplanes, the little propeller planes, you know, they are, of course, also using fuel, but they are much less impactful. I think there in the DEIR, there's mention of one other category of planes, and so we're sort of going to have to, this DER is like 1,000 pages, so no one is going to be very happy to read 1,000 pages of very detailed technical stuff, but luckily the people that are experts on this have been digesting it and are preparing sort of a summary and helping people understand the nitty-gritty. But yeah, the jets are the private jets are basically commercial. They are like commercial jets, only a little smaller. And so you would think, I remember talking to an airline pilot once in Berlin, who is a private jet pilot, and this was during the pandemic, and so we were just standing in line somewhere, and so I wanted to be nice, and I said, oh, you must be having a hard time because, you know, nobody is allowed to fly. And she said, oh no, private jets are doing just fine. And And then I thought, and so since we had to wait for a long time, I wanted to keep making conversation. And so I said, so what about climate change? Does that bother you? And she said, no, because my planes are so small, they emit far fewer greenhouse gases than a big commercial jet, which is true, of course, but there's also only 1 to 5, maybe 20 people in them, whereas in a commercial jet, you have hundreds of customers, right? And so you have to break it down per person if you want to understand the impact. And it was a little surprising to me that as a pilot who clearly knows math, she was not able to see that. But that is the problem. These are basically big airplanes, normal jets that are being used that have, I mean, you've seen pictures, of like the president has a private jet, I guess it's a private jet, but you have seen pictures, they don't have like, I don't know, 7 to 12 people sitting in a row. They have like 2 seats in a row, and maybe just 1 row, and then a big table and a sofa and a bedroom and whatever. So it's fancy. I mean, I can understand that it's nice, but at a moment when we're literally endangering human survival on planet Earth, this isn't the thing to do, That's just too bad for billionaires, but, they gotta go with the program. Other questions?
Like, I guess it's true, though, that the rest of us also have to think when we decide we want to take a trip.
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely. But airline travel is the biggest part of anyone's carbon footprint. If you look at your personal carbon footprint, and I am certainly guilty because my parents live in Germany and my kids live in California, right? And although I have tried to take a train across the country, it takes 4 days one way. And, most people don't have a week just for the trip. So that is the biggest chunk of my carbon footprint. But there's a huge difference. In fact, I had a slide, but it somehow disappeared, of the difference between what a private jet uses and what a commercial jet emits per capita, right? It is a gigantic difference, and that is precisely what is at stake. So yes, I think in the climate movement, we have not enough emphasized that business as normal is unsustainable, and that we all need to reduce our emissions, especially in the United States, because they are so high. Just last week, I read that in Germany, based on the emissions, and Germany is a little better than the US, but not that much. They basically have used up the emissions that they are allowed to emit based on the Paris Agreement target of 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. The US has used up its emissions a long time ago. So if you wanted to be fair to the whole world, the fact that we have started, in Europe and the United States, we started earliest emitting carbon, and many countries in the world have just started this century, then we really have the biggest changes to adopt, which isn't easy, of course, but it can be done if we do it, if we finally start doing it. Yeah.
So if the governor is really the last arbiter of this, what are the chances that she's going to pause this project?
Well, that depends on us. I think so far we've had a few chances to confront her at the WGBH public radio interviews, and she has always avoided giving an answer. She's always said there is a process, which is true, there's the process. But I think she's fully aware of the campaign, and she's fully aware of the problem. I mean, she understands, right? She was, as an attorney general, she sued the big oil companies for lying to us about climate change. So she is aware. I think what really needs to happen is that more people need to understand this, which is why I'm doing this. More people need to understand that this is going on, so that more people can join the chorus and say, no, this has to stop, right? And that'll make it easier for her to then say, my people don't want this, because we are her people, not the billionaires. And that needs to be very clear to her, and that we need to make that very clear to her. But so far she has avoided taking a stand, which I guess is politics.
When you talk about the process, so this deadline, May 10th, and then what is the next step? Like what, if it doesn't stop there, how long does it take these people to put through a development? And
well, they say in their dreams, they're going to start building at the earliest, I think, at the end of the year or early next year. But this is only the draft environmental impact report, and the idea is that the comments that we submit will then move the Secretary Tepper to, she has to then see, okay, what was in the report, what is in the comments, and then that leads to another process. And she might say, okay, there's more information missing, more needs to be provided by the developers, and then eventually there will be a final impact report. But usually these things go through a number of hoops. And there might be another draft.
yeah, I guess that was my
Right.
question. How many hoops do we have left? Or do we?
Yeah, it really
we at the last
depends.
hoop?
It really depends on how many people articulate their concerns, and how convincing we can be in our reaction to this very full of nonsense report that pretends to not see the elephant in the room, which is the emissions from the jets, right? And so yeah, I think one of the attempts on our part will be to show that there's a lot of unanswered questions here, and that just this can't be done. And then but the governor could say no tomorrow, which is why we keep asking her, just say no. She could end this tomorrow. She could say, I've seen the data, I've seen enough. It's not good for what we're doing. It's not good for Massachusetts. It's not good for the climate. It's not good for her legacy as a climate governor. And yeah, she could end this tomorrow, and that would be real leadership. But we'll see.
Well, has her energy person submitted comments for the DEIR?
So Secretary Tepper, the environment minister, she had like a book of questions for the developers last year in the first round, right? The developers submitted their proposal, and then the comments helped the secretary design the in the MEPA process, design the questions for the developers. And so she has done her homework. There's a lot that they had to answer, which is why this is a 1,000-page report, and it took them a year to answer all the questions that she gave them. Melissa Hoffer, I don't think has weighed in, as far as I know.
So who is she? She's
Melissa Hoffer is the first ever state level climate expert, a person that is, they call her the climate czar, but she was immediately when Governor Healy was inaugurated in January last year, she put this new position in place that would be a state level climate person, and that's Melissa Hoffer. And as far as I know, she has not weighed in on this
So
either.
I would think that she should be lobbied to weigh in.
Everyone should talk to everyone. Everyone should talk to their legislators. Everyone should talk to their friends in other towns in Massachusetts. Everyone should talk right to the governor, right to Melissa Hoffer, right? Yes, they need to hear from all of us. They need to hear that this is an outrage. It is inappropriate at this time to move forward with such a project. It's a slap in our face. It's really a slap in our face. I mean, we have been working hard, you know? I've spent a lot of money to try to decarbonize my house. And to just ignore that and let these people do whatever they want, it's really outrageous.
Isn't it true that one of the things that Tepper said in her comment after she looked at what they had said about their project, that it's not a permitting process. She doesn't have, she can't turn them down.
No,
It's like she's supposed to encourage them to do what they can
right,
to bring it in line with our climate goals.
right.
And-
She cannot, there's no permitting involved.
Right, no, I
Right.
understand that.
That's why she doesn't have that power, and neither do we. Yeah,
And the governor's role is not as powerful as one would like either. She appoints the members of the board of Massport, but Massport's incredibly independent. It was established in the 50s.
Mhm.
And when these airports were just beginning to come on, and the governor has only appointed one of the people, there are 6 or 7 members, who is her Secretary of Transportation, Monica Tibbetts-Nutt. So she doesn't have that much power over Massport. It's all kind of subtle business. One thing
Right.
people think could happen is that the legislature could start talking about changing Massport's charter.
right.
And
I think that is one thing that we could also talk to our legislators about, is that this Massport as an entity was established long before we knew anything about climate change, right? And its charter is simply completely outdated. And when you have climate legislation and climate priority at the top, that needs to filter down through every agency and everything we do, because otherwise you're spending money here and it goes out the window there, right? That is precisely what's happening here. And so we need to make sure that our agencies across the board prioritize climate protection for the people of Massachusetts, and the Enabling Act for Massport is one of those documents that simply is out of date and out of time, out of touch with the reality that we're living in, and it needs to be changed. And that is something we can actually work on our legislators to move forward.
One more question online, and maybe we can help this person afterwards, but is there a list of the municipalities that have made a resolution against the expansion so that she can shame her own town to get on board? I was just looking, I couldn't find one, but maybe we can.
No, I don't
set
know
her
if
up.
we have made a list, but I know that several, I mean, Wayland was the first, so that is definitely I can, show how we did that. And it wasn't difficult, because it isn't hard to see that this is really not sensible to do at a time when our towns are all trying to figure out how to reduce our carbon footprint. So I think that is basically the main argument to make. here we are, we have a sustainability manager hired, we have an energy committee in charge with volunteers that has for years written grant proposals and tried to get us LED lights and solar panels and EV chargers and all these things so that we can reduce our carbon footprint. And there goes the billionaires that say, we don't give a and we just want to fly private jets, right? So that is the argument to be made, and every town in Massachusetts should be outraged that this is happening and should say, wait a minute, we're wasting our money if these guys are not held to account. And that's the message that we need to make very clear to every town in the state, and hopefully then we stop this, and then we can also go to other states, because these billionaires are, of course, everywhere, right? Biden, in his State of the Union address, mentioned there's 1,000, what was it, 1,000 billionaires in the United States nowadays. So that's 1,000 too many. Nobody should be a billionaire, but they are definitely not just here in Massachusetts. So I think we have been a leader in the past on many, many issues, and this is one of them. And yeah, I'm happy to share my own experience here in Wayland, but of course we have the best select board in Wayland ever.
Great.
Any other questions or concerns, comments, disagreements? I'm happy to help anyone. So as you can hear, I'm also learning about this constantly. We're all learning about this and reading about this, and so I would strongly encourage everyone to get involved. You know, I teach students, and they always ask me, "What can I do?" This is something we can do, and it's doable. It's winnable. Let's win this. It is absolutely necessary to win this. And, you know, we can be very proud, and then we can have a big party on the ground.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks for coming and for listening online.
One more question we can take offline
Okay.
if you want. I don't want to hold everybody up, but someone's looking for a sample municipal resolution.
Yeah,
Maybe
we have those. We have a campaign leader that can send a sample municipal resolution, so we can, they should just email the email that's on the slide, info@stopprivatejetexpansion.org, and we will be happy to supply them with any information they need.
Okay.
And I think the towns may be listed on spje.org.
Yeah, that might be, I don't know. I
Our
haven't,
supporter organizations are listed.
I know there's a bunch of towns that have
I
passed
think
it.
the towns are too.
Yeah. And, you know, but we've been focusing on this right now, so we need to get back into getting more.